You remember when the galaxy breathed. You remember the great current, the star-born flow that connected every world. It was a river of light and possibility, a whisper that traveled faster than light itself. You could feel it in your very being, a constant, gentle pressure on your mind. It was the song of a trillion souls, all singing in a chorus of shared existence. The current was life. It was trade and communication. It was the highway for armadas and explorers. Empires rose and fell on its tides. It was a gift from the universe itself, a fundamental law as real as gravity. You never imagined it could be taken away. You never imagined it could be stolen. And then came the humans. They were a flicker in the grand timeline, a brief candle burning with frantic energy. You watched their first awkward signals push into the void. They were loud, so very loud. Their transmissions were a messy jumble of art and war, of foolish questions and profound declarations. They seemed to possess no filter, no sense of galactic decorum. The elder races dismissed them as a curiosity, a species of fragile, short-lived creatures. They were born, they built, they fought, they vanished, all in the blink of an eye for a being like you. They were obsessed with metal and fire. They built their homes on unstable worlds. They argued over everything, especially the best way to cook a dead animal. A primitive, if entertaining, addition to the great stage. Their potential was noted and then filed away. They were too chaotic to be a threat, too divided to ever challenge the great powers. This was the gravest miscalculation in 10 million years. The brief candle was about to become an inferno. The sovereignty saw things differently. The elder races who guided the galaxy's fate, they saw humanity as a blight, a noisy, expanding pest that consumed resources with reckless abandon. They did not follow the ancient protocols. They did not show the proper deference to their betters. The elder ones convened in their silent chambers. Their decision was unanimous and swift. The humans were a weed in the immaculate garden, and weeds must be pulled. Their great war was not a war of subjugation. It was a war of extermination. The sovereignty's armada was a thing of legend, gleaming world ships that dwarfed entire moons. They moved with the cold certainty of a glacier. Their path was absolute. Their goal was the complete erasure of humanity. Not just their people, but their memory, their art, their history, their clumsy, hopeful signals. All of it was to be turned to dust. The sovereignty's iron shadow fell across human space, a shadow that promised only a final, silent night. Humanity fought with a ferocity that surprised everyone. Their fleets were small and technologically inferior, but they were stubborn beyond all reason. They threw ships at the sovereignty's iron wall. They fought for every rock and every inch of empty space. Their defiance was magnificent and utterly futile. Their outer colony worlds were the first to fall. You watched as orbital bombardments turned green continents to glass. Moons were cracked like eggs. Asteroid habitats were vaporized in searing light. The names of the lost became a prayer on the lips of the living. Persephone's veil, Harmony, New Canaan, all gone. The core of their territory shrank with every cycle. The Sol system became their last bastion. Earth, their muddy, overcrowded homeworld, prepared for its end. The last human fleets gathered around their yellow star. They were broken, battered, but not yet defeated. They had one final, desperate gamble to play, a plan born of absolute despair. On a dying world, a mad idea was born. It was whispered in secret bunkers under a scorched sky. The world was Mars, a planet they had once dreamed of turning into a garden. Now it was their last laboratory, their last forge for a weapon of unthinkable power. Their greatest minds gathered there. They had nothing left to lose. The idea was simple in its insanity. If you cannot win the game, change the rules. If the current is the enemy's greatest strength, take it away. Take it away from everyone. They would not just destroy the enemy fleet. They would shatter the very foundation of galactic travel. It was a project of pure, undiluted spite. A final act of defiance against a universe that wanted them dead. The sovereignty sought to erase their memory. Humanity decided to erase the path to their door. They would build a fortress of silent, empty space. They would pull up the drawbridge of physics itself. So they began to build. They forged a machine of impossible scale. It started with rings of strange, dark metal. They were constructed in the hellish fires of Mercury, hauled into orbit around their own star, Sol. It was a project that consumed entire planets for resources. The last asteroids were pulverized for their iron. The last moons were stripped for their elements. The great engine grew, a web of black geometry against the sun. It was a net designed to catch a star, a mechanism to seize control of its output, to weaponize the very heart of their home. The other races watched in confusion. They thought it was some kind of shield, a pathetic last stand. They had no concept of what was truly being built. Humanity was not building a shield. They were building a cage for a god, and they were building a lock for the galaxy, a lock that only they would hold the key to. The great engine was nearly complete, a sphere of intricate machinery, waiting for the command to awaken. The final enemy fleet arrived, a fleet of such size it blotted out the stars. The flagship of the Elder Ones was at its head. It was a vessel named Eternal Adjudicator. The name was not meant to be ironic. They truly believed their judgment was forever. They sent one final, arrogant demand for surrender. The humans sent no reply. Instead, they made their final, terrible choice. The last of their people were sheltered, hidden away in deep canyon cities on Earth and Mars. Every soul knew what was about to happen. They were about to sever themselves from the universe. They were about to become ghosts in their own home. The command was given by a single woman. Her name is lost to everyone but them. She spoke a single word into a microphone. One word that activated the great engine. One word that ended an age. One word that plunged a galaxy into darkness. You remember that moment. You will never forget it. You felt it as a sudden, sharp pain, a tearing sensation deep within your consciousness. The star-born current, the constant, gentle river, vanished. It did not fade. It did not flicker and die. It was simply gone, as if it had never existed at all. The song of the galaxy was silenced. A trillion voices cut off in mid-note. The void became truly void, empty, silent, cold. The fundamental law of faster-than-light travel was repealed. It was like watching color drain from the world. A fundamental sense, one you had always known, was ripped away. The galaxy's breath was stolen, and you were left holding your own. Across 100,000 light years, it happened all at once. The sovereignty's armada was torn from the current. Their ships were not destroyed. They were simply stranded, thrown back into normal space light years from their targets, light years from their homes. Their perfect, invincible fleet was now a collection of metal coffins, adrift in a sea of absolute stillness. A million empires suddenly found themselves isolated. Interstellar trade routes collapsed into nothing. Communication arrays broadcast into a dead void. Worlds that depended on imported food began to starve. Powers that ruled through their fleets became toothless. The great, interconnected web of civilization was shattered. Every world became an island. The iron grip of the sovereignty was broken in an instant. Their subject worlds were free and utterly lost. Revolutions that had been brewing for centuries now had no one to fight. The galaxy did not erupt into chaos. It simply stopped. The grand machine of galactic politics had lost its power source, and it ground to a halt. You began your silent vigil. As a listener, your purpose was to record the song of the stars. Now, you recorded only the great silence. The first few cycles were filled with desperate signals. Cries for help and confused questions, all crawling at the speed of light. They would take thousands of years to reach their destinations. They were echoes in an empty hall. The galaxy became a collection of dark islands, each star system a prison. You watched as the great silence stretched into years, then decades, then centuries. You listened as the desperate signals faded, replaced by the quiet hum of isolated worlds. Worlds forgetting they were ever part of something larger. The silence was a monument, a testament to humanity's desperate, horrifying act. They had not won the war. They had ended the very concept of galactic war itself. They had traded their extinction for a cage. But you wondered, what kind of life awaited them inside it? Within their bubble, the humans were finally safe. The Sol system was now wrapped in the engine. They called it the Helios shell. It harnessed nearly all of their star's energy. It made them masters of their own cradle. No one could get in, and they could not get out. They were utterly and completely alone. This was the price of their survival. They were cut off from the universe they once dreamed of exploring. They were kings of a gilded cage, a fortress built from their own star. The first few generations felt the isolation as a wound, a constant ache for the star-filled sky they had lost. But they were human. They adapted. They endured. They forgot the ache of the lost stars, and they began to build. Their survival was no longer in question. Now, they could finally reach for their full potential. Unchecked by enemies, unbound by scarcity, safe in their cradle, humanity became titans. An age of human ascendance began. With the near limitless energy of their star at their command, they remade their world. They remade themselves. They engineered wonders that the old galaxy would have called magic. They became masters of matter and energy. They built cities that floated in the corona of their star. They expanded life to every planet and moon in their system. Mars finally became the garden they had dreamed of. Its sky filled with a second sun, a miniature star of their own making. They extended their lifespans. They conquered disease. They had a few internal squabbles. They were still human after all. But they were minor things. Family arguments in the house of gods. They became a single, unified civilization, a system-wide culture of creators and thinkers. They did not need the galaxy anymore. They had become their own universe, a universe of one star, a universe of infinite potential. Outside their golden cage, the old powers fell to ruin. The sovereignty crumbled into warring factions. Trapped in their home systems, their ancient technology began to fail. Their rigid society could not adapt to isolation. They had ruled a galaxy. Now they could not even rule their own planets. The elder ones became cautionary tales told to frighten children. Across the dark, other empires withered. Those dependent on the current for resources starved. Those who ruled by fear were overthrown. A great dark age descended upon the galaxy. Star science became superstition. History became myth. For thousands of years, there was only silence, and the slow, inevitable decay of what had been. You watched it all? A chronicle of entropy. You almost forgot the fiery species that had caused it. You almost believed the silence would be eternal. Until one day, after 10,000 years of utter stillness, something new appeared. A knock at the golden door. A single ship arrived at the edge of the Sol system. It moved without a star-borne drive. It slipped through normal space using a method you did not recognize. It was a vessel born of the silence, forged in the long, dark age humanity had created. It was sleek and sharp, a sliver of obsidian against the void. It broadcast a simple, peaceful message. It was not a sovereignty warship. Its design was unknown to you. It came from a species that had been considered little more than animals in the old era. A species that had risen from the ashes. They had solved the puzzle of the silent void. They had learned to walk where the old races could only swim. The ship waited patiently, a single brave messenger at the gates of the gods. They came not for revenge. They came not with demands or threats. They came for knowledge. The new travelers of the dark, they knew what humanity had done. They did not see it as an act of terror. They saw it as the greatest feat of engineering in history. They saw the humans not as destroyers, but as pioneers. The message they sent was simple. You taught us that the river was not the only way to travel. Now teach us how you stopped its flow. They did not want to restart the current. They wanted to understand the power that could control it. Humanity, the keepers of a stolen power, now faced a new choice. They could remain alone in their perfect cage, or they could open the door. They could share the secret that had saved them, a secret that could reshape the galaxy once more. You now watch the golden door. You wait to see what the children of Sol, the titans in their gilded cage, will do next. The silence is about to be broken, and you do not know if it will be with a greeting or a scream.